Hey guys, as mentioned, wanted to do a quick one up for driving tips, some do's, don'ts and stuff. Basically came out of the drive down to Tim's Thicket the other day. I noticed quite a few things. I managed to record a few elements, missed a bit because by the time we get there and try and set up your camera to record things, events occur beforehand, but I took pictures, so I'll try and talk you through some of that. So hopefully you might be able to avoid some of the errors that were made by some of the people that were there. Not taking a dig at anyone that was there that did these things, but it's just, everyone makes mistakes. Even I do this sometimes too. So some of the stuff we're going to be doing, first one is this particular example of a guy that's bogged in some soft sand. I'll walk you through how he got bogged and how to avoid something like that. Some fixes, simple fixes and some do's and don'ts around this that would prevent you being in a similar scenario. Examples I would try. Now I can't even remember why I put that in. That's examples of things I would try to do if I'm in his situation prior to some of the things that actually happened that got him out of it. I've got a video that I took a walkthrough of the area and the event. So after the video of the event of him being, got a little bit of him being snatched out, and I wanted to point out some action in his wheels. I don't know if I got a lot of it because I was a bit far away by the time that started, but and I was trying not to get people and number plates in the video just for people's own thoughts on the matter. Then I did a video of the area, so I walked it through so you could see some stuff and some further examples of some points I wanted to make known. So this is what I saw when I rocked up. As you can see down here, you can see this guy in his old Colorado, really bogged in there, right on the bottom of the sand. At the moment, when I first rocked up, this guy here has got a max tracks, and they've been using tracks to try and get them out of a situation just prior to me occurring. This line here was originally they tried to use another vehicle to winch them out. That was done away with. Not the best. I wouldn't. Not the best case in this particular beach because the vehicle at the top. He has got this quite a bit of got gravity and the hill to try and pull him out of a place where he's dug himself into. So there's a lot of weight he's got to try and pull, which would equate to him, what happened was it dragging him actually forward, not pulling the car out. Now, just before we go into the next bit, wanted to show you what happened or how he ended up in this position. So you can see here on this picture to the right-hand side, you can see these. This is a main line where obviously everyone comes up and down. You can see there's a loft spur here where people can move off to the side to let people in and out. This is the vehicle that was trying to originally winch him out. Didn't work. So you can see in this picture, like this one here, this is looking from the angle from his vehicle up, and this is obviously from the beach down. So he's obviously taking, there's two lanes. One's this one, and there's another lane that you can see someone's tried to use here. So obviously, if I wasn't there at the original start where he's got himself stuck here, but from the guys that were there earlier, mentioned there was some stoppage here. Someone's gone around, either impatience or whatever. Someone else, this gentleman's gone around, but he slipped out of the rut, and as you can see, this is incredibly soft sand here, and he's come, instead of just coming around this way, because this guy actually got through, he's come further down and come up, and then he's tried to go through here to get back up there. Across, as you can see, it's sort of a mound right there. Not the best place I would aim to try and get my car back up. I would probably continue on a beach a little bit more and try and go in where you have a dip. so there's less of a hill for you to climb, because this section from the rut line through to around the high tide mark is the softest area of the beach, whereas this down here, this is harder sand. Now, another view from it backwards, so the rut lines, you can see here clearly the lines where people are actually going around. You can see how deep they're digging in. And this one you can see another view. I tried to get further enough back so no one could be identified. Now he's started down here. These are actually tracks that he's been using map tracks and digging himself to try and move himself further and further up to try and get up to the rut line, to get himself out of this. I've got a few pictures. Is it next? Yeah, next. You can actually see, look at this. So this is where it starts. So you can see all these ones here. And this is the bottom bit. This is all scrapage from him bottoming out. So he's hit this as he's coming along, and then he's obviously slowed down momentum. His wheels begun to spin, and he's dug himself into a nice big ditch. This is really clear. You can see it. It's not very good, soft, choppy sand, and then all of a sudden started to sink, lose momentum, dug himself a grave pretty much. And I'll go through a little bit more after he gets out. I think there's a video. I'll show you a picture of it afterwards, and I'll actually show what I would have done and what I was going to do if he didn't get out. I was actually going to go over and help him, but because he had a lot of people around him, I didn't want to really get too involved in it. Now, I took this photo. This is him, as you can see, really bottomed out. Absolutely zero chance of getting yourself out of this at this stage. You got to try and make sure you don't end up in this position. Now, there's a picture a bit later of a guy that gets in a similar problem, but he doesn't get it to this quite extent and manages to get himself out. Now, it's hard to see in this photo, and I've taken it in a different photo, but he has not deflated these tyres. I took photos at next. Yeah, here we go, next. I tried to zoom in a little bit more. I didn't want to make it too obvious or point out mistakes, because people don't want to hear what they did wrong so much, especially when they're really worked up after such an ordeal. They'd been there for an hour, 2 hours or something. But when you looked right up to these tyres, these were not deflated. I went up and actually kicked them and had a good look. Didn't deflate them. So that was a big issue, because what you're doing is, as soon as you hit that soft stuff, these are like big diggers, and they just dig you a hole. And this is, as you can see, dug nice deep holes, and nothing's happening. And when he did try and go, all he would do is he'd spin his wheels. And originally when he started, originally when he started, I see it go ahead and start on view. I think it was right at the start. Okay. He has, I don't know whether he had his, I don't know why this moved by itself. I don't know whether he had his 4 high engaged or traction control turned off, or 4 low engaged, but he didn't actually have that you noticed when he was trying to get winched out. I noticed sometimes his back wheels would spin, just flicking dirt, no movement on his front wheels. Sometimes movement on front wheels, no movement on back wheels. So that would indicate to me he's not in 4 low, because what should happen is, if you're in 4 low, particularly if you've got a good 4-drive system that's got Diff Lockers or central Diff Locker, it'll make sure that all power is distributed to both forward and front, and you will get spin or movement on all, both front and rear. You might get one spin on one side if you don't have rear diff lockers or front diff lockers, but if you've got central diff locker, you're going to get 50 front, 50 back. So you get both spins in 4 low with no traction control on. And now if you're spinning just your back wheels, you're just digging your bottom in. Spinning on your front wheels, you're digging your front in. So if you're not in the right option, then that's what's going to happen. So if we move ahead, get out of this side, that was the winch person that tried to winch. As you can see, they got pretty close to it, and it's quite low down here, so the winch was aborted. Snatch strap was brought in. Now at this point, this is a really good photo for what I was going to suggest. If snatch strap didn't work, I was going to suggest an extended snatch strap, because the guy he was just up here a little bit further past the where you see the end here. He was in the rut line. He had a decent forward drive, and he was in low, and he had his tyres fade, so he's in a good position to pull this guy out. And I'll show you a video of that in a second. But I would have suggested, first of all, when he first got bogged, you can see this area here. Now, this is all soft. This area here, especially because I got out and walked it and tested it, is hard, nice hard sand. And if you're trying to get up a hill like this and you can't do it through the use of like doubling up max tracks, i.e. I'd say if you have 4 max tracks, you put all 4 on the front, so it's 1 here, 1 there, and then you basically lock your central diffs in, and your front wheels will catch on it. It'll lift you out of the hole that you've dug yourself in, run over both max tracks because it's got grip. You'll spit those ones out towards here to the back. By the time you're over the fronts, your back one should have actually caught some of those 2 max tracks, and will generally keep you going a bit further up. You'll either end up all the way out, or you'll end up in a position where both have spat through both the front and the back, and they end up back out here, and you can repeat the process. But you continually move forward. But as soon as you've gone over both and you start to spin, you stop, so you don't continue to dig yourself in. But alternatively, what I would do in most of these, and I have done when I put myself in the same situation, when I've slid down and I'm facing in this kind of direction like this guy, or even slightly different, is to actually, before you've dug yourself in, preferably 2, would be to actually simply, one, lower your tyres, but reverse backwards, or rock your vehicle backwards and forwards a little bit to flatten out some of the sand that you've churned up, with the intention, though, to use gravity to back yourself backwards. And there's a great example of another dude who actually tried to come through this same area, started to get himself bogged partway through here, which I got pictures of, and you can see his lines where he's basically just backed all the way back through here using this harder sand, build up speed, and managed to get all the way through again. So it shows that that particular gentleman had a bit more nous to get himself out, not floor it and try, but to assess the situation, go, this is too soft, but let me use my gravity before I get dig myself in. Reverse back over the lines I've already made because they're somewhat compressed, and head down towards the water, even though, it's low tide, so you're not going to sink your car or nothing. But this area here is going to be harder. So even if it means backing in and a bit of water washing over your tyre, this area here is a harder section. And when you get bogged like this, you'd get out and have a look, test the sand around, have a good look at your angle and say, all right, if I just move some of this sand behind and make some nice lines leading backwards so my tyres can lift myself out, and I can just run on those lines backwards until I hit the harder stuff, and then turn my vehicle straight and bring up some speed until I hit the top of this hill, and then build up my speed again and come straight across here and then up. That's what you do. So this is a video, not very long because I caught it, didn't get it quite. This is the snatch out. So as you can see, this one, he's nice, decent forward drive in a good spot. You can see him pulling. You can see the back wheels spin, and then the front wheels spun more there, and then there's back wheel spin going on here. For more front wheel spin there. But you can see the position he ends up with. He's sort of fighting it as he went up. You can see that. That was the end position. He ended up facing that way rather than front way. It's like he was fighting the actual line rather than following the vehicle in front and letting him tugging towards the rut line. He's finding to go straight up into here, and he had to get snatched again to go straight and get himself facing the right direction. So if you ever get snatched, just go with the vehicle in front of you, get in their line until you both end up in the right position. But the reason I mentioned about those spins is he was in 4 high, and there often was spinach on different wheels at different times, and that wasn't succinct, so he wasn't in 4 low. I was playing it again. Okay, so this is after people have been trudging through it, so it's not as deep as what it was. They had to go back and look for some max tracks they lost in here. But as you can see, look at these deep trench lines. This was hugely deep lines. He'd bottomed out all the way through there on this one. So yeah, like I said, see the angle, it's just high, it's tilted, so your vehicle's always going to be on a slant with a lot of weight lifted to the left on the left tyre. So therefore traction, if you don't have diff lockers, you will find that your right wheels will spin more than your left wheels will, because they don't have a lot of weight on them. There's not a lot of traction through it, so you're not going to get the grip you need. So that's why sometimes diff lockers can be helpful when you're in 4 low, when you're in a bad spot like this. They're not essential, like I said, but if you're in a position like this when you're on an angle, try and get out of your angle and get either face directly straight up and down or straight this way, or like I said, best once you started to get into the situation, just reverse back, reverse straight back over your line, harden it up, like as you can see down here, go straight back over this rather than dig here and go, crap, I need to keep going forward because that's my desire. Just go back over the line you made here. This is already slightly churned, but it is compacted slightly, so go back over this and head towards the harder stuff and then rebuild speed. It's not a race, really. Now this is it. I did this one and I tried to make sure I got an angle where I didn't get this guy's number plate. I'm not pointing anything out about this gentleman either, but here's another example of someone who didn't deflate their tyres and got themselves bogged, but not permanently bogged. It was much better. Obviously knew a little bit, was a little bit more aware of the situation. I saw this from way over here, so I had to actually run all the way over to try and get some footage. I wanted to actually get some footage of him actually realising, because he did a turn. You can see this line here, and it curves around here. I've got another picture where he curves. He's done a turn, basically, so he tried to turn here and some soft stuff. And then as he got towards here, he started losing momentum. There was a lot of wheel spin and a lot of sand getting flicked. At least he realises that he had a lot of sand flicking and not a lot of momentum, so he stopped immediately and he got out and he started lowering his tyre pressures. So this, as you can see, so you can see here, this is the turn he's trying to do, and some really soft stuff. And basically he ended up lowering all his tyre pressures and pretty much went straight out, just reversed slightly back. So he actually, when he was stuck, he was back here. This is him moving. I wasn't able to get the video out in time, but he was back here originally. So he let his tyres down here. And then he reversed backwards over what he'd already done, and then he went forwards right up and onto the rut line and was off he went. Now, I did this picture to demonstrate some idea of what happens when people either don't lower the tyre pressures or I would say not use proper forward driving manners on the beach and churn up a beach head. This portion of Tim's thicket is generally nice and hard. I wouldn't say hard or firm, it's the best word. So that's the rut line here. This generally is softer, but this whole section here is generally flat. There's no major track lines like this. I think I've got another one here like this. There's no major big old you can see how this is all churned up. There's no churned up sand all through here. This is generally pretty firm, which means that it's, like you can see here, this is more of what it would look like most days, where you can see actual marks from the car tyres, not dug up sand, because this dug up sand crisscrossing means that it turns this into, you know, a bit of a quagmire of soft sand that people can easily get stuck in. And this happens from people just not using the area properly. So just good manners just to stay in the line. If you're going to do a turn, do it properly, deflate your tyres, and try not to turn up the sand too much, because when people want to do a turnaround point, it makes it hard. So I did a video of the area. This one's a little bit longer, so I've shown you. So this is what it normally looks like. See how this is nice and firm, not a lot of indentation when people hit the sand. And this is, you can see, look at all these people where people are turning around and how deep and how churned up. Look at all this churned up sand where people are doing really tight turns and churning up this whole area, which makes it really difficult if you're coming around the corner. You know, most people should be up here, unless you're coming down here to pick a spot to fish, but you'd be doing it in that area that, like I said, was harder, where you've got, you know, lines like that. You use other people's lines to make the area nice and firm. You should be running along rut lines that are like the ones that are just there to the, these rut lines and these ones. You should try and use other people's lines rather than churning up the beach like that. I mean, it's just a bit of common courtesy and helps others who aren't as experienced make sure that they don't get in a predicament where they get stuck. You can see here this sand here often is either spray back from people churning through here at a bit of speed, or if they're bottoming out, so low cars, all-wheel drives will often just skim along this and flatten this out, but this is churning up from people whipping through here at high speed. So this is a guy that I mentioned, he was letting down his tyres. I'm not trying to point him out, but he's letting down his tyres at the moment, and that was his turnaround point. You can see there, it's quite deep. Look at those big, deep churn points where he's just brought it around here, and look at how deep they end up being. So he's gone through some really soft stuff, and he's ended up in that position. At least he did the right thing. He stopped, paused, deflated his tyres, which he should have done at the start, and he was able to then reverse back, gain some momentum, and get through this area through there. So just an example of the beach, some good points and some bad points. This is an example of the guy who did the right thing later in the evening. So this is that churned up section the guy got stuck in. You can see there's a few lines here. So what this gentleman's done in his four-wheel drive is he's tried to come through here. I don't know why he didn't go along here. I can't remember what his reasoning was, but for some reason he decided to go to low down along the beach. And then he's decided he wanted to come through here, which is a terrible idea. But anyway, he's come through here, and as he's come through this section, as in both photos, very similar. But this one's a little blurry. He started losing a lot of momentum. He started spinning. So all he's done, as you can see in both, he's done 2 attempts actually in this. You can see how he's reversed back here in this direction, and you can see he's reversed back using just as I said right at the start, using the moment, the gravity, coming back down to the harder stuff on the beach, turning, and then coming back. As you can see, no big sinkage in the sand, which means this is nice and firm. And he's then gone back, like you can see this is from round about where I was standing, where I took the photos. So you can see as he's gone further in, he's sunk in deeper. He's reversed all the way back right up towards these vehicles here, build his momentum up, and then tried again on 2 occasions. On the second occasion, this is the second occasion, you can see the marks. He ran all the way up and he managed to get all the way up onto the rut line. So that is a good example of when you've gotten into a position where you're going, holy crap, hit some soft stuff. Immediately you feel loss of momentum and wheel spin. Try and rethink your idea, reverse back, get onto the harder ground, put yourself in a better position, build up your speed slowly but carefully through some harder stuff till you got enough momentum so that it can carry you through the soft stuff. And I put this photo to the right here mainly because I know some people mentioned in a previous video about Tim Sticker's entry and exit point. The exit point was like this, like a cliff originally, and because of the excess activity, someone originally came down here, and eventually people started coming up here. But this, at the moment, is still these are deep ruts, really deep ruts. As you can see, a lot of people bottoming out here. One dude almost got stuck going up this portion here as they try and turn to get out of the ruts that are here, because everyone's going this way. You actually have to fight your car to get it to go up there, which puts a lot of pressure on your car. So I'm hoping this will improve if you four-wheel drive down there later. But at the moment, most people were still using the exit point, which is further up here rather than the one over there. And this is just a picture of the Tim's Dicker at the end, just before the sunset. All right, so key points. I'll finish this up real quick because it started to go longer than I thought it would. Oops. So, tips or best practices, number one, I'll deflate your tyres before hitting the beach or pretty much going anywhere off-road. Stay in the ruts that are already there wherever possible. They are firmer and help you from getting bogged. If you slip out, try not to fight your vehicle too much. So if you come out of your rut line and you turn your car's the wheel to try and get you back in, you're actually putting a lot of work on those front tyres as it tunes up the sand, trying to pull yourself up. Sometimes, you can get back into the rut if you give it enough, but just be aware that if you are losing momentum and there's a lot more wheel spin, and that turn you put on your wheel is actually creating a lot of work for the vehicle, and it makes it really hard for it to do what you're asking it to do, and it can end up churning up too much of the sand and get yourself stuck. So that's what I mean by don't fight it too much. If you find yourself getting in a position, perhaps turning down and going onto the harder stuff and then coming back up is a better idea, or stopping, getting out, quickly having a look and going, all right, better see if I can reverse back into the rut from where I came out, or reverse right back down onto the harder portion of the beach. So sometimes that is a good idea. Like I said, if you feel lack of momentum, spinning tyres, best to stop, reassess if you're not experienced enough to go, I know exactly what's going on, or I can quickly see from my mirrors or my window what is happening. And if you are in a situation where you're like that guy who got rather stuck, move yourself in a four-wheel drive low in this situation if you're not already in that, and if possible, utilize any diff locking that you've got, whether it's be central diff locking, so 50 power to the front, 50 to the rear, or if you're lucky enough to have rear and front diff lockers, sometimes they're really useful to use. I've got the central diff locking and the rear diff locking in mine, and they come in handy quite often, especially if you're in a really awkward spot on the beach and only one tyre has access to traction. And also with the four-wheel drive low, because it turns off traction control, traction control can interfere with what you're doing. So I always turn mine off, even in four-wheel drive high. So four-wheel drive high is great if you're just motoring along the beach and it's nice, firmer sand and you want to maintain some speed. Because you can't get high speed in four-wheel drive low, so a bit of a work for your car. It's not really designed for that. It's designed for low-end torque situations, but it doesn't naturally turn traction control off, so it's always a good idea to double-check. Use gravity when possible. I mentioned that, like as in if you're trying to go up a hill and you're kind of stuck, best to go backwards rather than try and fight gravity and fight the sand and all the other elements. Best to move backwards, line yourself up straight, gather momentum, then go up the hill, and try and do it in a either graduated manner or in a straight manner when you've got the momentum you need first. And don't go on a hill that's, let's say, really steep on a slight angle because you risk tipping. Okay. Try rocking your vehicle back and forth to firm up the ground to allow momentum. So if you do find yourself getting slow momentum, spinning wheels, stop and then maybe try and rock your vehicle. So that's putting it into reverse back slightly until you feel a little bit of a spin. Stop. Put it into drive or first go forward a bit. Go over the ground. So basically all you're doing is you're going up and down the line and you're firming up the sand that you're using, and you're firming up that sand so that you can get traction, and once you firm up that sand you can generally pull yourself out of a soft sand spot into a harder sand spot and move yourself out. Also lower your pressure if possible further. So if, like me, when I hit the beach sometimes I'm at 20 psi. A lot of people go lower, a lot of people have special pressure they love, but I generally rock in at 20 and I can accommodate my vehicle depending on the situation. So I start at 20, and if it's a really soft sandy beach and really fine sand, I'll drop it down further. Or if I get in a situation where I've hit a bit of a bog like the gentleman who tried to do the turn who didn't deflate, and I tried to do his and I got a little bit spongy. If I couldn't reverse, I might lower it a little bit further and try again, something like that. Then things like utilising recovery gear properly. So when I mentioned about using your tracks, using it as a ramp, so using two in front of each other, rather than saying putting one under each the fronts and one under each backs, you're only going to get the whole distance of that track forward. You're not going to get any much more forward than that if you're on a situation like that, guys. So sometimes layering them in front of each other, you can actually build a pathway out. And also learn multiple recovery techniques and understand to work at the beach to the best of your ability. So don't just, like the hills, you don't use the gravity, use the harder compressed areas, turn around the right places, note areas that are good for turning around, note areas that are better for stopping in, don't stop where it's softer, all those sorts of things. And I'll go through more recovery stuff in a different video where I put my own car in those types of situations, and I'll show you what I would do to recover my car out of that without gear and then with gear, and with various gear, trying to take in mind that not everyone has it. So if you can work without it, it means that there's a higher chance that you won't be in a situation where you can't get yourself unstuck without help. And if you've got a few things, then like tracks or a snatch strap, then I show you the best ways to use those if it comes to that. What you shouldn't do, obviously, don't go down with inflated tires. Please, please, please deflate them. It tears up the beach, it makes it worse, increases the softness, and increases your chances of getting stuck. Bad idea. Just take the time out and deflate them. I don't know, it sucks, takes a bit of time, but please don't do it. Don't park below the high tide watermark wherever possible. I've seen videos when people get stuck and the car's sunk. All sorts of stuff, like be aware of it. You might put your car so that it is on the high tide mark, so it's on harder sand. But being aware of high tide so that you can get yourself out beforehand. I always, like this one here, I always set yourself up so that when you're ready to leave, you've got a pre-made path out. I do this so that when I park myself in the position, so if my back's facing towards the beach, because I want to fish out the back of the car, I will drive right up to the rut line and then right back down to where I want, right back up and right back down. I'll firm that area up so that as soon as I'm ready to go, I know my car is going to go straight out and I'm not going to have issues. Same with the high tide mark. If I park below it, I know that I've already marked to go forward and I never leave my car unattended. And I'm always aware of high tide. So those things are something to keep in mind that some people might not be aware of. And if you're spinning your wheels and you've got no momentum, don't accelerate, for Christ's sake, just because that just digs yourself in. You're essentially just digging a giant big hole for your tyres to sink into, and all that happens is your vehicle will bottom out on the ground and you can't go any further. All you're doing is spitting sand everywhere. So if you feel that happening, and you will when you're driving, you'll notice it, car is slowing down and you're putting your foot flat to the floor and you'll see sand going everywhere, that's a bad scenario. And the lower the momentum and the more the acceleration, the more possible damage you're doing at that time. So best to either quickly reassess what's going on and make a really quick judgment call based on your experience, or stop out and get out, reassess, and have a look at what you can do to fix the scenario, okay? Best to reverse out of wherever you are if you can, because you've already sort of hardened up where you've come from, okay? So work yourself on harder sand areas, build momentum before tackling soft areas. This is a big one, momentum to tackle those soft areas on the harder area. And that's the same with being stopped and all the rest of it. Be prepared for being bogged just in case, because it doesn't matter how good you are. I still get bogged from time to time. Not bogged like my first example bogged, but bogged like the guy that did it right, where he went through some stuff, realised it wasn't working and had to get around that scenario. That's what I mean. Being prepared for those sorts of scenarios helps make sure that when you go to the beach, you have a fun time. And keyly, don't overestimate four-wheel drive capabilities. Just because you have a four-wheel drive doesn't mean you can go everywhere. Not all four-wheel drives have four-wheel drive high and low. You might have an all-wheel drive. And not all four-wheel drive have high and lows that are equal. Okay, so remember, your four-wheel drive low is designed for those areas where you need torque. So down power at the low end of the spectrum. So that's something to keep in mind. So when you're usually used for people that do four-wheel driving, like rock hopping, like climbing rocks and stuff, will be in low, because they need that low down torque to get themselves moving, and it's creepy crawly space. It's also good for the beach, where you need that low end torque, but you don't want to spin your wheels. You want to lock everything down. So don't overestimate it, and get to know what your four-wheel drive capabilities are. So a little bit of practice and a little bit of awareness with that is a good idea. So that's it from me on to some little do's and don'ts and tips and best practice and some scenarios from the weekend. I will be doing a video that covers putting my vehicle. I was going to do it on that day where that guy did it, but I did get busy doing other things and doing other videos, so I didn't get around to it, because I wanted to actually show here's what the guy could have done if he was in a different scenario. But anyway, that'll be for another time. Same with the recovery methods. So check back in. Those will be coming up soon. I'll probably hit the beach the next weekend or so and get some filming done from inside, outside, so you can see what it looks like when you're losing momentum and wheel spins happening. So I want to show you what that is, and also how to use the hills to your advantage, where to go to hit the hardest sand, and recovering out of the areas without recovery gear wherever possible, because I think that just in case you don't have it, it's always a good idea to know how you can get yourself out of it. I've managed to do it most of the time without using anything apart from a shovel. So that's it from me, and thank you for listening.